Oh yeah, baby, it's me and Patrick, it's Transfer Review. It's Thursday morning, we've got Sunday vibes to shoot. Everything's being done in a rush yet again, so we're going to dive straight in with Thiago Alcântara to Barcelona or Manchester City from sources unspecified. This would be one hell of a move to either of those clubs.
Yeah, well, it certainly looks like he's on his way out somehow or another. We talked about Real Madrid potentially being interested in the midfielder. That was a few weeks ago, but now it seems that Niko Kovac, since arriving at Bayern Munich, has decided that Thiago is surplus to requirements. He needs to rebuild the squad.
German?
No.
Croatian.
The 27-year-old's price tag is mooted at 70 million euros, which is a lot, but certainly affordable for these two clubs. And while he struggled with injuries, he has maybe had slightly better fitness or slightly more availability over the last couple of seasons. He's played limited minutes, but in his first two campaigns, he made 13 appearances, then 25, then it was 31, 41 and 41 again. So while we'd expect that those were mostly sub-appearances, the fact that he's available to be used at all is certainly an improvement. But I would still be worried about his injury record.
Yeah, I think they have some bloody cheek asking for that amount, given the fact he is always injured. And I imagine a lot of those appearances were from the bench.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Barcelona, very familiar territory for Thiago Alcântara. He rose through their ranks and made his senior debut for the Blaugrana in 2009, scoring 7 goals in 68 appearances over the course of 4 seasons. Infamously left in 2013 under a cloud, didn't he, for just 25 million euros. When Pep told the Bayern board it's Thiago or no one. Fortunately for the Bayern board, he had a weird buyout clause, didn't he?
And also his agent was Pep's brother Pere, I believe. So that all worked out for everyone,
Behind the scenes move. Like I said, 70 million, quite steep, but apparently his price could drop if Barcelona are willing to throw Lucas Digne into the mix. And I imagine they'd be very, very willing to do so. He was a bit part player last season. Jordi Alba had the season of his life. And they were actively trying to get rid of him in January, weren't they? So, looks very feasible. A number of his ex-teammates and current Barcelona players are reportedly calling for his return to the new camp as well. And when Messi kind of puts in a little request, it tends to get facilitated, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, he's kind of perfect for Barcelona. Like, in a way, it's weird that he ever left, and I think it only made sense for him to go to Bayern because they were then being run by Pep Guardiola. And similarly, the Man City move kind of makes sense in the light of that too. He's a game-controlling midfielder. We're not going to go into his stats because we've talked about them before, but obviously big defensive numbers, good dribble numbers, creative as well. He can really do everything, except stay fit.
Yeah.
But Man City, I think they do need depth in midfield. Obviously, they were looking at Jorginho, lost out on him to Chelsea. They've been looking at Kovacic, but apparently they've been put off by his 80 million euro price tag. So Fred, of course, ended up at Man United. So clearly it's an area they're looking to strengthen. And having only bought Riyad Mahrez, you'd imagine that there's plenty of cash available to make an acquisition.
Yeah, you can see why with Fernandinho approaching, what, 33?
Yeah,
right?
like that.
And the Kovacic thing confuses me because I thought he came out, told Marca he wanted to leave Real Madrid and his release clause was 50 million.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden the fact that Real Madrid are demanding 80, there seems to be a conflict of interest there. Someone is wrong.
Yeah.
And I think Pep is going to move for a central midfielder pretty quickly because, like you said, he's had his fingers burnt, hasn't he? I think the Jorginho thing is really going to hurt because Sarri and Chelsea coming together at the tail end of the British window, at least, has kind of maybe taken Manchester City by surprise. I think they thought they had that move sewn up effectively. Can you see Manchester City moving for anyone else if Thiago does return to Barcelona? Starting to become slim pickings in midfield, right?
It depends what kind. If they want a Jorginho type, we've talked about this before, how Julian Weigl would be quite an interesting fit for a Pep Guardiola side. Like, he's not particularly mobile, but none of these guys actually are. Like, Thiago isn't either. He can dribble, but he's not fast, if that makes sense. Julian Weigl is also a kind of game-controlling midfielder with good defensive numbers, an excellent passer of the ball. He's still extremely young, so plenty of time to develop. Good technical ability. There were rumours that Bayern wanted him when Pep Guardiola was there. But the thing about Thiago is that, as you've said, Pep's always been kind of all or nothing when it comes to this guy. And interestingly, back in 2015, when Pep moved to Manchester, Mundo Deportivo, the Catalan newspaper, said that Pep's 3 main targets were Aymeric Laporte, Ilkay Gundogan, and Thiago Alcantara.
Ah, it's the slow knife.
Yeah, 2 of those have been nailed. So one of them yet to come. Yeah, I think Weigl's kind of the obvious guy to me. I don't think they'd get a Verratti. But yeah, I think if my options are 80 million Kovacic, who's 24 and fit, or 70 million Thiago, who's 27 and never fit, I feel like one of those is a more sensible option than the other.
And Kovacic is a bit more box-to-box for me, as opposed to Thiago Alcântara, who is that controller who resembles Jorginho. So like you said, that would make much more sense in my opinion. But where do you guys think Thiago Alcântara will end up? Vote in the poll just above. Will it be Manchester City? Will it be Barcelona? Or is he staying put? Let's move on.
Next up, unusually for Transfer Review, we have some goalkeepers. And apparently Thibaut Courtois might be on his way to Real Madrid.
Yeah, and a crazy turn of events. Real Madrid appear to be paying under the odds for a sort of Galactico signing, don't they? Because Thibaut Courtois, World Cup Golden Glove winner Thibaut Courtois, put a bit of respect on his name, only has 1 year left on his contract. So Chelsea in a pretty weak position to negotiate, although Arsenal did get more than this for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain when he had a year left on his contract.
Yep.
So I'd have thought they'd have held out for at least 50 if Real are that desperate. But the thing is, Real Madrid aren't that desperate because they have Keylor Navas, who is a very able... I mean, calling him a stopgap is a little bit disrespectful because he's won the Champions League 3 times and he's performed extremely well at international level. However, it has felt like they've been trying to find an upgrade year on year.
Yes,
and
this happens every summer.
When he almost went to Manchester United, he said he cried when the transfer didn't go through, didn't he, Keylor Navas? Bless his cotton socks. Averaging 3 saves per 90 in the league and the Champions League, so not bad. I mean, that's given that I think Ter Stegen was making around 4.5 to 5 and he was topping the league. He's not too far behind the Barcelona stopper. This would represent exceptional value, I think, for Real Madrid. And it does leave Chelsea in a bit of a tight spot, doesn't it? Because they have been linked with a return for Petr Cech, which I'm sure a lot of Chelsea fans would be fairly uninspired with. And you've spent the last 12 months berating his performances, and rightly so, because it's not been good, has he? Where would this leave them? What candidates would this leave them with to replace Thibaut?
Well, this is the one thing, right? This is the one sense in which I can get them not holding out for more money. Like with Arsenal, Oxlade-Chamberlain, it was the end of the window, and he kind of at the last minute said, look, you know, I don't want to sign a new contract. And they said, fine, right, we'll sell you. Whereas Chelsea, they've left their transfer business so late, they've left getting Sarri in so late, that now they might need to sell up so that they can get their business done this month. You know, if Abramovich isn't providing the same funds he used to, then they kind of need to make decisions.
It's that if, right? If you've got a limited transfer budget.
But even still, with a year left on his contract, they have to make that decision now, or they'll be shafted come January.
But we saw Leicester increase Riyad Mahrez's transfer value in the same circumstances, didn't we? As in, you've only given us a week to find his replacement. Okay, we're demanding 70 for him, and they still sort of rejected that in January, didn't they? But
yeah, but I think the situation is different. This is more Chelsea saying we've got a year left on his contract, we can't hold out. You know, we have to sell this guy at some point, and if we want to make a move, we have to do it now, because it looks like Liverpool are going to get the Alisson deal done. They've agreed a £66.8 million fee with Roma, which would obviously drastically overtake the current record for a goalkeeper, which is Gianluigi Buffon back in 2001. Now, Alisson has obviously been absolutely fantastic. Last season, conceded 28 goals, about 0.8 a game, kept 17 clean sheets, meaning he didn't let in a goal nearly half of his playing time. Making 2 saves from inside the box, 80% save percentage. That is absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's very difficult to give context for this kind of stuff, but 80% is sky high, and he's been overperforming in the goalkeeping position his entire career. So I think Alisson would make a lot of sense. Petr Cech, not so much. That would be the definition of stopgap, and it wouldn't even stop that gap. He's now too old. He'd be a backup keeper at best. I think that actually, if Alisson's going to Liverpool, I think Schmeichel makes more sense. And I'd prefer him to Donnarumma. What do you think of those two?
yeah, that's a very interesting scenario, isn't it? Because you've got a 31-year-old Kasper Schmeichel in his prime right now, coming off the back of a great World Cup where he saved a barrel load of penalties, has had another solid season with Leicester. He would be a safe pair of hands for sure to pick up from Thibaut Courtois. And then you've got the 19-year-old prodigious talent Donnarumma, just signed a 4-year contract, would demand a hefty transfer fee. His quality in terms of being at the top is not yet assured. So, I'm not entirely convinced by Donnarumma, but I have heard Sarri is targeting him quite aggressively.
Okay.
So he's obviously been impressed with what he's seen during his time in Italy. But back to Kasper Schmeichel, because I think he would be very adept in a Sarri system. His distribution is fantastic. His variety of distribution as well is great. His pass accuracy when going long, pretty formidable when you compare it to the rest of the goalkeepers in the league. Not going to dive into the stats right now. And his short game's fine. It's not the best, but I think he would be a very reasonable stopgap. But what do you think?
I mean, it depends. Again, like you said, it depends whether they want to take a gamble on a guy who could be their keeper for 15 years or get somebody in who's a short-term kind of solution or medium-term solution, I guess, in Kasper Schmeichel's case. I think that there's a lot of surgery to be done to the rest of the squad, so I'd probably, and you're not getting a huge amount of money for Courtois, so I'd probably take that money and maybe make a move for somebody safe like Schmeichel and deal with, you know, the right wing position, figure out what's happening with Eden Hazard, maybe bring in another midfielder, you know, kind of go around and sort the squad out in its other areas. Because for me, goalkeeping, I think actually what Sarri proved with Reina is that there's a lot of undervalued talent out there among goalkeepers. You know, Reina, Liverpool deemed him surplus to requirements, brought in Mignolet instead, and since then they've tried, you know, Bogdan, Danny Ward, Karius, like they've Alex Manninger, like they've gone through a bunch of options while Reina was just being perfectly competent. So I think that I trust Sarri to pick the guy who's going to fit his system best and not hopefully just to go on reputation.
I also think something's got to give with the whole goalkeeper situation at Burnley. Tom Eaton and Nick Pope, both number ones.
Yeah.
So if I was Chelsea, maybe try for one of them to the tune of 30 to 50 probably at this point.
Yeah, you'd probably go for Pope because he's younger, right? He's 26 years old.
How good does Edison look at 33 at this point, by the way?
I mean, it's interesting how quickly like an insane transfer fee becomes normal. Like last year, everyone said, wow, 33 for Edison, that's absolutely nuts. And this season, people are saying, well, 70 million for Alisson, that's just, you know, what you pay for a top player in this market. So, I don't know, it'll be fascinating to see what Sarri does to get a sense of what his policy is going to be like and how much money Chelsea have knocking around in the kind of new era under Abramovich. Who do you think Chelsea should go for? Let us know in the comments below.
Bit of deja vu for our final section. It's Nabil Fekir to Liverpool again. Nabil Fekir to Liverpool, Volume 2. Apparently, in a strange turn of events, it might be back on, despite Orlas saying, F off Liverpool, despite Liverpool saying we want to pay less because of his recurrent knee injury, and he didn't. Did he pass a medical?
No one really knows.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more, then we'll have a discussion about Liverpool at large. Haven't really got a transfer shocker this week, so maybe let's just throw in a couple of suggestions yourself, round off this show, and get the hell out of Dodge, Van Straten.
Yeah, I don't get this at all. Like, all that's changed over the last month with Nabil Fekir is that he's won the World Cup, which I'm not sure really changes his value to Liverpool. Obviously, Oxlade-Chamberlain is going to be out next season, but Liverpool supposedly have known that since he got injured. So that doesn't change the deal at all. And Liverpool pulled out before. If they go back, this doesn't strengthen their bargaining position. If they thought the fee was too high before, why shouldn't Leon now say, right, well, you went away, couldn't find anybody else who you thought could do a job in that position, so we're going to ask for 10 million more?
Yep.
Like, there's absolutely no reason for them not to do that. And I think it's a bit weird as well that it doesn't, you know, betoken thoroughness on the part of Liverpool, that they kind of said, we really want Fekir, Fekir's not going to work, dicked around for a month and then said, you know what, we'll go back in for Fekir. Like, that's strange. If they wanted to pay less, if they wanted another option, there are other ones around Europe. Nabil Fekir is not the only kind of all-round attacking midfielder who can also play as an 8. Like, I think, I like the player, but to me, this is kind of weird and a little bit silly from Liverpool.
Bit of egg on their face, right? However, they have made up with that, with the exceptional business they've kind of conducted in the other,
the rest of the business, fantastic.
Other areas of the pitch, Fabinho, Alisson, brilliant. What do you think to the whole argument that if Jurgen Klopp continues to spend big, then anything but a league title or a cup is a failure? Because it's been doing the rounds on Twitter, hasn't it? Now Alisson has cost him this world record fee. There seems to be the collective opinion that I think it didn't help that he said that he wouldn't spend in that manner, and he's kind of changed his transfer policy. So he's gone back on that a little bit. But there's a collective opinion yeah, that he has to win something with Liverpool this season?
I think people always say this, but it depends what you win. Like if he wins the FA Cup, I don't think Liverpool are going to be happy. I think if he's going to win something, it's got to be the league or Champions League. But at the same time, there are many, many good teams, and they can't all win the league and Champions League. Progress is what they want, right? So if this season, rather than Man City running away with the league, Man City beat them by a point or two on the final day, you know, an amazing Man City side, I think Liverpool fans would still have to see that as progress.
Yeah.
To me, they're actually still better set up to succeed in the Champions League than the league. Like Man City, Pep Guardiola builds league-destroying machines. Like his teams are incredibly good at league campaigns. They manage games well, they rotate well, and they control games well. Whereas in the Champions League, often there's a little bit of chaos, and it's really about how much you can motivate your side and get your tactics just right over two legs. And Klopp is exceptionally good at that. So I think I would look at this Liverpool squad and say they can beat anyone in the Champions League. Even though I still think, you know what, man for man, Bayern Munich, PSG, Real Madrid are still better than them across the board.
Yeah, I don't think competing for Champions League football until the last game of the season yet again would represent progress this season. I certainly don't think that the board would tolerate that given the expenditure, given how they've improved the squad this season. So I would imagine if they can push Pep Guardiola Manchester City for the title until the dying embers of 18-19, then yes, they would be happy. If they went deep in Europe again, yes, they would be happy. It's not just a token Carabao Cup or an FA Cup, is it, that would keep Klopp in his job. And kind of like you intimated, you don't just get sacked on the pretext that you're not going to win a trophy that season. There has to be an outstanding candidate to replace you, doesn't there? A little bit like Jurgen Klopp with Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers was a bit unfortunate to get sacked, but Jurgen Klopp was deemed the manager with the better pedigree, and I fail to see who is really kind of waiting in the ranks, who's not in a top job at current, to sort of swoop in, you know, if Jurgen Klopp doesn't blow away everyone in the Premier League. What are your predictions? We're going to do a prediction show, but maybe let's get kind of first thoughts at the end of transfer review for the Premier League season on Eurofootball Daily.
Oh my God, it's a difficult one. I mean, I still I think I go Man City 1 and Liverpool 2. And then after that, I just think that I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs took a bit of a step back, but Spurs are extremely reliable and their players have excellent fitness. So while Harry Kane could get injured, he doesn't really tend to. So then I go Spurs, and then I think it's just mayhem for the last place. I mean, I think Man United need to improve a lot, and I don't think they've really done that much to the squad, though I think Fred will be extremely helpful. They're another year older. Arsenal, I think there's actually quite a lot to come from, but Arsenal could improve a lot on last season and still not really be in the running for Champions League places. Chelsea, no idea. I mean, the thing about Sarri is I think his team will pick up over the next 2 or 3 seasons. Like, they'll gradually get more moulded into his style. But it's extremely unlikely that after he comes in and spends a month training them, that they're going to be playing peak Sarri ball, you know, by September. So I think Chelsea are kind of a squad in transition. And yeah, I think that they'll be competing with those other two.
Yeah, Arsenal and Chelsea are already playing catch-up. So I think it is going to be them that potentially miss out on Champions League football yet again. But we kind of said that when Conte came in during his first season. So let's see how instantaneous Sarri's impact can be on the Chelsea team. But guys, what are your top 4 predictions for the Premier League next season? Let us know in the comments below. At the end of the show, Patrick Van Straten, what else should people watching Transfer Review do now?
Ooh, well, you can head over and check out Transfer Talk if you want a roundup of all the kind of major stories from around European football. Obviously, we've got Sunday Vibes where we go into depth on some of the bigger topics around at the moment. There's Stat Wars, the champions coming up, I believe. What else? I don't know. God. Just stick around, subscribe, like, drop some comments, insult Joe, you know, do the usual.
There you go.
Bye.